The bass from the speakers makes the floor of the underground bar in Queens tremble. Neon washes everything in sickly blue and pink. The air smells like spilled beer, cheap perfume, and desperation. Lottie Brooks keeps her head down as she wipes a sticky table for the third time. Her wrists ache. Her back is damp with sweat under the thin black t-shirt the boss insists the staff wear. The envelope with tonight's pay is tucked deep into the pocket of her jeans, pressed against her thigh like a fragile lifeline. If she can get home with this money, she can pay the rent. She can buy flour and sugar for the little cupcakes she sells at the weekend market. She can keep breathing for one more week. Behind the bar, her boss Vince laughs too loud at a group of men in suits. One of them, a red-faced guy with a beer belly, keeps smacking the tabletop with the flat of his hand every time he laughs, like he needs the whole room to know he is important. Vince catches Lottie's eye and jerks his chin. His smile does not reach his eyes. "Lottie, bring our special guest a drink," he calls. "Make it the house favorite." She glances at the chalkboard of cocktails. There is no house favorite. A cold knot curls in her stomach. What is it exactly? She asks as she walks behind the bar. Vince already has a glass in his hand. The liquid inside is an electric red, the kind of color that should not exist in anything a human is meant to swallow. He drops in a few ice cubes and presses the glass into her hand. "Cherry bomb," he says. "On the house." And smile. He is doing us a big favor tonight. Lottie looks at him. Vince's fingers are tight on the rim of the glass. There is sweat on his upper lip even though the bar is freezing from the old air conditioner rattling in the corner. She has seen that look before, in the eyes of men who owe the wrong people money. "I am on shift," she says. "I should not be drinking." "You are not drinking it," Vince snaps in a low voice. "You are taking it over, and maybe you sit with them, keep them company, make them feel welcome. You want those hours on your timesheet, or not?" He leans in, smiling again for the benefit of the table of suits, and hisses near her ear. "Do not make me remind you who gave you a job when nobody else in this city would touch a foster home dropout." Shame burns the back of her throat. Lottie curls her fingers tighter around the sweating glass. She turns toward the table, her heart pounding. The red-faced man looks her up and down in a way that makes her skin crawl. "Finally," he says. "The bar does have some decent scenery." Lottie sets the glass down in front of him and forces a polite smile. "Cherry bomb," she says. "On the house." He pushes it back toward her with 2 fingers. "Drink with me," he says. "Otherwise it is no fun." Vince is watching from behind the bar, his face tight. There is something like fear in his eyes. Lottie swallows. She needs the job. She needs the money. She needs to survive. She lifts the glass. The cherry scent is too sweet, masking something bitter underneath. She barely has time to think before the red-faced man clinks his beer bottle against the rim. "To new arrangements," he says. Lottie takes a cautious sip. The liquid burns down her throat, too hot, too fast. The room tilts. Her vision blurs around the edges. That was fast. Too fast. Her fingers loosen around the glass. It wobbles. Vince is suddenly by her side, grabbing it away. "Easy, Lottie," he says, all false concern. "Maybe you have been skipping meals again. Sit down a second." The red-faced man grins. "Bring her upstairs," he says. "We can talk about that debt in private. I am sure we can come to an understanding." A buzzing grows inside Lottie's head. Panic spikes through the haze. No. Her legs do not want to move, but fear gives her a jolt of strength. She jerks away from Vince and stumbles through the crowd, shoulder-checking strangers, ignoring curses and spilled drinks. The bar lights smear into streaks of color. The door to the alley is a bright rectangle ahead of her. She shoves it open and staggers out into cold night air. The chill hits her face. For a second she can breathe. Then the world lurches again. Footsteps pound behind her. Vince's voice, sharp and angry, echoes in the alley. "Grab her. She owes you, Mr. Foster. She is not going anywhere." Lottie turns, but the ground sways beneath her. A shadow looms in front of her, blocking the neon glow from the bar. She collides with a solid, unyielding chest. Strong hands grip her shoulders to steady her. "Easy," a deep voice says, smooth and cool, with a hint of annoyance. She looks up. He is tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably costs more than her yearly rent. Black hair, sharp cheekbones, eyes the color of storm clouds. She knows that face. He was in her bakery stall that morning, buying a slice of tiramisu and defending her when a rude customer tried to walk off without paying. She remembers thinking then that he looked like he had stepped out of a magazine, all polished edges and quiet power. She had never expected to see him again. "Help me," she breathes. "Please." They put something in my drink. Her tongue feels thick. Her knees buckle. Her fingers clutch at the lapels of his suit jacket. Behind her, Vince and the red-faced man spill into the alley, with two heavy-set guys at their backs. "Mr. Walker," Vince says quickly. "This is a misunderstanding. The girl has had a little too much. We will take care of her." The man's hands tighten on Lottie's shoulders. His eyes flick over her face, taking in the dilated pupils, the pallor, the way she sways. Something cold and lethal enters his gaze. Kane Walker has had a very bad night. An hour ago he was at a private club in Manhattan, toasting a lucrative merger with investors his uncle Gordon had introduced. The champagne tasted wrong. His head went light in a way that had nothing to do with alcohol. He had left early, trying to clear his mind, but the world had kept tilting. Some part of him had known exactly what it meant. Gordon Walker has wanted his seat at the head of Walker International for years. A convenient overdose in a dark club would be a neat solution. Kane had ordered his driver to take him anywhere that was not that club, anywhere he could ride out whatever was in his system. The car had stopped in Queens when his vision blurred so badly he could not see the street signs, and he had stepped out into noise and neon and the pounding in his veins. And now this girl has crashed into him, all soft curves and wide terrified eyes, smelling like sugar and espresso, and the faint cocoa dust he remembers from the tiramisu this morning. He looks past her at the men in the alley. "You gave her something," he says. His voice is lower than usual, roughened by the drugs trying to drag him under. "What was it?" Vince forces a laugh. "It was just a drink," he says. "She is dramatic. You know how girls like her are." The red-faced man licks his lips. "She owes me," he says. "Her boss promised we would have some fun. Step aside, friend. You look like you have your own problems." He glances at Kane's unsteady stance with a sneer. Rage pushes back the fog in Kane's brain. Fun. With a girl who is barely conscious. He steps forward, shifting Lottie behind him with one hand. The motion feels clumsy, but his body remembers old fights. Years of boxing for stress relief come back in a harsh rush. "She is not going anywhere with you," Kane says. "She is with me." The red-faced man scoffs. "And who the hell are you?" Kane does not bother to answer. Vince answers for him in a strangled whisper. "He is Kane Walker," he says. "Walker International." Fear flashes across his eyes. The red-faced man stiffens. Kane reaches into his jacket with his free hand and pulls out his phone. The screen swims, but he finds the number he wants. His security detail picks up on the first ring. "Back alley, Queen's bar called Neptune," Kane says. "Now." He hangs up and looks at Vince. "Walk away," he says. "This conversation is over." Vince opens his mouth, then closes it again. He backs toward the door, hands up. "Sure, Mr. Walker," he says. "Sure thing." The red-faced man lingers a beat longer, anger heating his cheeks. But when the sound of tires screeching reaches the alley, he curses under his breath and stalks off. The two heavy-set guys follow. The door slams. The alley is suddenly quiet, except for the distant thump of music and the ragged sound of Lottie's breathing. Kane turns back to her. Her pupils are blown wide now. Her skin is clammy. Her weight sags against him. "Stay with me," he says, guiding her toward the sleek black town car idling at the curb. "What is your name?" "Lottie," she whispers. "Brooks." Her head lolls against his shoulder. He can feel the heat of her through the thin fabric of his shirt. He is sweating too. The drug in his system claws at him, trying to pull him down, but adrenaline holds it at bay. "We are going to get you somewhere safe, Lottie Brooks," he says. "I promise." He helps her into the car. The leather seats are cool against her bare thighs. The interior smells like expensive cologne and new upholstery, a world away from the sour stink of the bar. She blinks up at him as he slides in beside her. "You are the tiramisu guy," she murmurs, trying to smile. "You paid for the woman who yelled at me. That was nice." Kane almost laughs. "I like good dessert," he says. "And I do not like bullies." Her eyes drift to half-mast. "Me neither," she whispers. Her head tips against his shoulder again. The driver looks at Kane in the rearview mirror. "Boss. Nearest hotel with a private entrance," Kane says. "Now." The car pulls away from the curb. Streetlights smear into golden streaks outside the window. Lottie closes her eyes, trusting the warmth of the man beside her more than she trusts her own blurry thoughts. Her fingers curl into his sleeve. "Do not leave me," she says, so softly he almost misses it. Kane looks down at her. Her lashes tremble against her cheeks. Her lips are parted. He hesitates, then covers her hand with his own. "I will not," he says. The hotel room is all glass and chrome and high thread count sheets. Kane barely remembers getting them up the private elevator, his security men flanking them like shadows. He remembers Lottie stumbling, remembers catching her, remembers the way she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in the world. He means to put her to bed and sleep this off on the couch. That is the plan. Then she looks up at him with eyes darkened by the drug and something else, something hot and hungry, and she whispers his name like she has known it all her life. Kane. She tastes like cherry and sugar and danger. The rest of the night dissolves into heat and tangled sheets, and the feeling of finally losing control in a way that frightens him and frees him all at once. When morning comes, sunlight pours through the wide window, turning the white sheets gold. Lottie wakes to the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Her body aches in new ways. A man's arm is heavy across her waist, his chest warm against her back. For one suspended moment she lies still, watching dust motes spin in the light, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. She remembers flashes, his mouth on her skin, his voice rough against her ear, the way he had said her name like a promise. Then reality grinds in. She is naked in a stranger's bed, in an expensive hotel she cannot afford, with a man whose world is clearly galaxies away from hers. Panic slams into her chest. She eases his arm away, inch by inch, holding her breath every time he shifts. She slides out of bed and grabs the first sheet she can reach, wrapping it around her body. On the nightstand, her small canvas bag sits where someone must have dropped it. Her fingers shake as she digs through it. Phone, keys. The little silver pendant shaped like a slice of cake that she has worn since she was 15, a cheap trinket she once swore would be a symbol of the bakery she was going to own someday. She lifts it, meaning to fasten it around her neck. Then she looks back at the man in the bed. Even asleep, he looks dangerous. His brows are drawn, his mouth set in a hard line. The sheet has slipped low on his hips, revealing the lines of muscle in his stomach and the faint scar along his ribs. She has never seen anyone like him outside of magazine covers and boardroom news segments. He is trouble. He helped her. He saved her from something horrible. But his world is not meant for her. If his people wake and see her here, what will they think? That she is a gold digger. A girl who drank too much and hooked up with the first rich man who looked her way. Her cheeks burn. She glances at the pendant in her hand, then at the bed again. On impulse, she sets the pendant down on the pillow beside him. A thank you she can never say out loud. Then she grabs her clothes from the floor, pulls them on with clumsy hands, and slips out of the room on bare feet, her shoes dangling from her fingers. The hallway is empty. The elevator ride feels like an eternity. By the time the doors open into the quiet lobby, Lottie's eyes are stinging. She steps out into the bright Manhattan morning with the taste of regret on her tongue, and the memory of a pair of gray eyes burned into her mind. In the hotel room, the sunlight climbs higher. Kane wakes with a headache that feels like a construction crew is working behind his eyes. He rolls onto his back with a groan. His body protests in several interesting places, which at least tells him that the images in his head are not just fever dreams. He remembers her laugh, the way she had said no when he had given her a chance to back out, then had come back to him with a determination that matched his own. He opens his eyes. The bed beside him is empty. The sheets are rumpled. The air smells faintly of sugar and coffee and something floral. For a moment he thinks she is in the bathroom. "Lottie?" he calls. No answer. The suite is silent. He sits up slowly. A small glint of silver on the pillow catches his eye. He reaches for it. A pendant. Cheap metal, a little worn, shaped like a tiny slice of cake with frosting and a cherry on top. He closes his fingers around it. It is still faintly warm from her skin. She left. Something ugly and unfamiliar twists in his chest. Kane has had women leave before. Casual encounters. Polite smiles the next morning, numbers exchanged that he has no intention of using. This feels nothing like those. He presses the pendant into his palm until the edges bite. "Sir?" His head of security calls from the other side of the door. "We have your uncle on the line. He wants to know if you are feeling better." Kane looks at the door, then at the pendant again. He thinks of the club, of the champagne that tasted wrong, of his uncle's hand on his shoulder, heavy and too friendly. He thinks of a girl running into his arms in a dark alley because there was nowhere else to go. "No," he says quietly. "I am not." He swings his legs off the bed and stands, ignoring the protest in his muscles. Get me everything you can on the bar in Queens called Neptune, he says as he pulls on his discarded shirt. And run a search for any employee named Lottie Brooks. She left something behind. He closes his hand around the pendant and feels a strange, sharp sense of resolve. I want to return it. 5 years later, the tiny rented house on the edge of Queens looks like a bakery exploded inside of it. The kitchen counters are covered in cooling racks. Rows of cupcakes line up in military formation, each topped with a swirl of buttercream, and a carefully placed slice of strawberry, or a shard of chocolate. The oven timer dings, and another tray of cinnamon rolls joins the chaos. Lottie moves between the counters in a whirlwind of flour dust and controlled panic. Her hair is twisted up into a messy knot, a pencil stabbed through to keep it in place. There is a smear of chocolate on her cheek. Kylo, oven mitts. She calls. Lorna, do not let your brother eat the frosting again. Lawson, the twins are supposed to be dressing, not wrestling. A small boy with a mop of dark hair and serious gray eyes appears in the doorway, scrolling on a tablet with the kind of focus most adults only manage for tax returns. You called? He asks without looking up. The mitts, Lottie says, pulling a tray half out of the oven and wincing as heat blasts her face. Now, genius. Kylo sighs dramatically, puts the tablet on top of the fridge, and grabs the oven mitts. You know, if I wrote a script for this, the oven would turn itself off at 2 minutes before burning. He says. We are living in the technological dark ages. Until your script can pay Con Ed, we are doing it the old way. Lottie says, laughing. He grins despite himself. He is 8 now, all sharp brain and quick fingers, a laptop practically glued to his hands. When he was 3, he took apart an old desktop computer at the community center just to see how it worked. By 5, he was writing simple games. At 7, he hacked into the school attendance system to fix a mistake when Lorna got marked absent. He thinks she never noticed. Lottie noticed. She had almost fainted. She still thanks the universe every night, but he uses his powers mostly for good. From the other room, a shrill voice rises over the sound of cartoons. Mom, Lawson stole my brush again. I did not. A boy yells back. I borrowed it for Kaylee because she is crying about her hair. Lottie blows out a breath. 3-minute warning. She calls. We leave for the market in 10. If you are not wearing pants, you are not coming, and you will miss free samples. There is a collective gasp. Footsteps thunder down the tiny hallway. 5 small bodies spill into the kitchen like a pack of puppies. Lorna, 8 like Kylo and already almost as tall as Lottie, has her hair braided back with ribbons that do not match her t-shirt. Her hands are dusted with flour from the batch of cookies she insisted on making herself, which actually taste better than Lottie's if she is being honest with herself. Do we have enough chocolate lava cakes? Lorna asks. Last time we sold out in 20 minutes, and that guy with the man bun looked like he was going to cry. We have 3 extra trays, Lottie says. If he wants more than that, he can place a special order. Cammy, 6 and small for her age, plants her hands on her hips. I will handle special orders, she announces. I have a new pitch. Nobody will say no. Cammy could sell ice in December. She has big brown eyes and a smile that could make a parking ticket disappear. She also has a terrifying ability to hear the word no and immediately turn it into a yes with a tilt of her head and some ruthless logic. Lawson, 6 and built like a miniature linebacker, bounces on the balls of his feet, punching the air. I can carry the heavy boxes, he says. And I will walk you to the car, Mom. You know, in case of danger. Very chivalrous, Lottie says. We will watch out for dangerous squirrels together. Kaylee, 5 and already convinced she is destined for Hollywood, twirls in a dress that has more tulle than fabric. Do I look like a cupcake princess? She asks. You look like the Queen of Sugarland, Lottie says, kissing her forehead. Kaylee beams. Little Rocky stands half behind the fridge, hands in the pockets of his dinosaur hoodie, watching everyone with large solemn eyes. He is the quietest of the 6, the one who can end a room with one perfectly placed comment. Lottie crouches down to his level. Hey, tough guy, she says. You good? He nods once. Your eyeliner is smudged, he says. Lottie blinks. I am not wearing eyeliner. Exactly, he says. That was a joke. He gives the smallest hint of a smile. Lottie laughs and ruffles his hair. Okay, squad, she says, clapping her hands. Our market stall opens in 40 minutes. That means we have to load the car in 10, drive for 20, and set up in 10. We can do this. You always say that, Kylo says, sliding his tablet into his backpack. And 90% of the time something unexpected happens and you say, why does this always happen to us? That is what makes life exciting, Lottie says. It is also what keeps her up at night, staring at the ceiling, worrying that the floor will give out from under them. 6 kids, 1 mom, no safety net. She does not let that show on her face. The market is a blur of color and noise. Food trucks line the curb, music from a street performer drifts over the chatter, and the air smells like grilled meat, and sugar, and coffee. Lottie's stall, Lottie Cakes, is wedged between a woman who sells organic soap, and a guy who carves tiny animals out of reclaimed wood. A handwritten sign with swirly letters hangs from the front of the table. The cupcakes look like jewels under the cheap clear cover. Lorna arranges samples with the concentration of a scientist in a lab. Cammy stands at the front, ready to pounce on hesitant customers. Lawson keeps a watchful eye on Kaylee, who has already tried to climb onto the table twice to perform for the crowd. Rocky sits on an overturned crate, humming under his breath, scribbling in a notebook. Kylo is supposed to be helping make change. Instead, he has his laptop open on a milk crate behind the table. Homework. Lottie asks suspiciously as she hands a woman her change and a box of macarons. In a manner of speaking, Kylo says. The glow from the screen reflects in his eyes. Lines of code scroll by faster than Lottie can follow. She frowns. What are you doing? Research, he says. I am curious. About what? DNA. He says lightly. Lottie freezes. Her smile drops for a second before she rescues it and pastes it back on for the next customer. Kylo, she says in a low voice. We have talked about this. You said we could ask about him when we are older. He says, still typing. We are older now. He is 8. He looks at her like he is 30. She swallows. I know you wonder about your dad. She says. I know you all do. But some things are complicated. Complicated does not mean impossible. Kylo says. I found a list of men in New York with our eye color, our hair color, our blood type markers, and the right age range. Lottie's stomach drops. How did you find that? Kylo shrugs. The internet. The medical information is not on the internet, she says. He gives her a look. Not for most people, he says. But for some. Kylo. She puts a hand over his, forcing him to stop typing. Please, she says, softer. Whatever you are doing, stop. We are okay. We have each other. We do not need anyone else. He studies her face. There is a flicker of hurt in his eyes. You need help, he says. You fall asleep at the kitchen table. You do not buy things you want. You pretend everything is fine so we do not worry, but we are not stupid. Her throat tightens. I am not pretending. She lies. I am choosing to be happy with what we have. Kylo looks back at the screen. He hesitates, then closes the laptop halfway. Just because you had a bad experience with him does not mean he would be a bad dad, he says. Lottie flinches. The memory of the hotel room rises unbidden. The warmth of Kane's body, the way his eyes had softened when she had whispered his name. The sound of the door closing behind her as she fled. She never saw him again. His security team came back to the bar, asking questions, but by then she had lost her job. Vince disappeared owing 3 months of rent. Neptune shut down. By the time she realized she was pregnant, she had no way to find the man with the storm gray eyes. She had 6 reasons not to try. She looks at her son now, at the stubborn set of his jaw that matches her own. Some stories are meant to stay in the past, she says. Or you are afraid of the ending. Kylo says quietly. A gust of wind rattles the tent. Lottie straightens. Help your sisters with the samples, she says. We will talk about this later. He watches her for a beat, then nods and closes the laptop fully. But that night, after the kids are asleep, and the house is finally quiet, Kylo lies under his blanket with the glow of the screen reflected on his face. He types faster than any kid his age should. Walker International, he writes in the search bar. CEO Kane Walker. He pulls up a photo from a business magazine. A man in a dark suit, gray eyes cool as steel, jaw sharp enough to cut glass. Kylo tilts the laptop so the light falls across his own face. Same eyes. Same angle of cheekbone. Same little notch in the left eyebrow. He copies the photo into a folder labeled Project Dad. Then he digs deeper. Financial records. Addresses. Public speeches. Charity galas. Every scrap of data he can find. He does not touch anything private. Not yet. He is not a bad guy. He is just a curious one. The next day, while Lottie goes to deliver a special order to a downtown office, Kylo gathers his siblings in the living room. We are going on a field trip, he announces. Is it dangerous? Lawson asks hopefully. Only if you do not follow instructions, Kylo says. Do we get snacks? Kaylee asks. We can maybe get pretzels, Kylo says. Depending on the success of our mission. Lorna eyes him. What mission? Kylo taps the screen. Kane's official company portrait fills it. This is him, he says. Our dad. Cammy gasps. Kaylee squeals. Lawson's eyes go round. Rocky blinks once. Lorna folds her arms. You are sure? Kylo nods. I ran the facial recognition algorithm 3 times. There is an 89% match with all of us. Plus the dates line up with when Mom was sick that year. Plus I found the security footage from the hotel where she was that night. You hacked a hotel, Lorna whispers. Kylo lifts his chin. I did not change anything, he says. I just looked. Mom will freak out, Lawson says. She does not have to know, Kylo says. Not until we have proof. Today we go to his office. We look at him in real life. We see if it feels right. Cammy bites her lip. What if he does not want us? Then we still have each other, Kylo says. But at least we will know. Silence falls for a moment. Then Lorna nods sharply. Okay, she says. What is the plan, Captain? Kylo smiles. Step 1, he says. We take the train to Midtown. Step 2, we walk into Walker International like we own the place. Rocky raises his hand. Step 3, he says. Chaos. Kylo grins wider. Exactly, he says. Outside, the city hums in the afternoon sun, oblivious to the 6 small figures who will walk into one of its tallest glass towers and change the trajectory of more than one life. Walker International's headquarters looks like a shard of glass stabbed into the sky. The revolving doors never stop spinning. People in sharp suits move in and out with purpose, phones pressed to their ears. The security guard at the front desk watches 6 small kids march across the marble lobby like they own it. Kylo leads, backpack on, chin up. Lorna carries a bakery box like it is a crown jewel. Cammy walks in the center, already flashing her best customer service smile. Lawson keeps a hand on Kaylee's shoulder. Rocky brings up the rear, hands in his pockets, eyes taking everything in. Hi, Cammy says, standing on tiptoe to see over the desk. We are here to see Kane Walker. The guard blinks. Do you have an appointment? We are his children, Kaylee announces. A few people turn to stare. The guard coughs. You are who? His children. Kylo repeats calmly. We will wait. He pulls out his laptop and perches on a lobby chair like he does this every day. Lorna opens the bakery box. The smell of tiramisu rolls out into the lobby. A passing executive slows, sniffing the air. At least tell me your names. The guard says, flustered. Kylo Brooks. Kylo says. This is Lorna, Cammy, Lawson, Kaylee, and Rocky. Brooks. The guard repeats. Not Walker. We are working on that, Cammy says. Upstairs, Kane stands at the floor-to-ceiling window of his office, staring without seeing the skyline. 5 years, and he still has not found her. He has tried. He closed the bar. He had Vince tracked down. Vince disappeared. The pendant sits in his desk drawer like a ghost of a night he cannot forget. His assistant, Evan, appears in the doorway, looking confused. Sir, you need to see this, Evan says. Security sent a picture. He holds out his tablet. Kane takes it. 6 kids in the lobby. Big eyes, familiar dark hair, a bakery box. One boy with a laptop and a serious face that punches the air out of Kane's lungs because he looks like a copy of a baby picture Kane's mother keeps in a frame. Under the image, the guard has written, they say they are your children. For a heartbeat, Kane forgets how to breathe. It is a prank, he tells himself. A scam. Something. He cannot stop staring. Bring them up, he hears himself say. A few minutes later his office door opens. They file in, staring around at the art and the glass and the shelves of awards. It feels for a second like someone has taken his quiet, controlled world and filled it with solar flares. Kylo walks right up to his desk and sets his laptop down. Hello, he says. We are here to confirm a hypothesis. Kane looks at him, at all of them. Lorna has Lottie's eyes. Cammy has her smile. Lawson stands like a tiny guard. Kaylee's dress is a riot of color. Rocky meets his gaze with a flat, measuring look that feels older than 5. His heart slams. What hypothesis? He asks, voice rougher than usual. Kylo opens the laptop. Photos appear. Screenshots. A split screen with Kane's face on one side and 6 small faces on the other, each with little lines of text that make no sense to anyone but a person who lives in code. Genetic probability. Kylo says. Based on open source data and facial analysis, plus one important variable. He taps a key. A grainy still from hotel security footage fills the screen. Lottie, 5 years younger, in a worn hoodie, follows a tall man down a corridor. Even in low resolution, Kane recognizes his own frame. The heir leaves the room. What is your mother's name? He asks. Lottie Brooks. Lorna says quickly, as if she is afraid he will pretend not to know. Kane sits down hard. He remembers flour on her fingers, her laugh, the way she had whispered, "Do not leave me." He also remembers waking up alone with only a pendant for company. He had told himself she had used him, that she had seen a rich man and an opportunity. Now 6 pairs of eyes watch him like he holds their future in his hands. Kaylee drags a chair closer and climbs onto it. Dad, she says carefully, testing the word. Do you like cake? Kane lets out a sound that is half laugh, half shock. Yes, he says honestly. I do. Lorna opens the bakery box. Tiramisu, she says. Mom's recipe. My version is better, by the way. He takes a bite. Coffee and cream and cocoa melt on his tongue. It is the same flavor that has haunted him for 5 years, perfected by small hands. His throat tightens. Where is your mother? He asks. Working, Kylo says. She thinks we are at the library. She is going to be so mad. Lawson mutters. She will get over it when he buys her a house. Cammy says. Kane looks at them. Then he does something he almost never does in business. He makes a decision based entirely on his heart. Call your mother, he says. Tell her you are safe. Tell her you are with me. Ask if I can come and talk. Kylo studies him for a moment, as if weighing the truth in his eyes. Then he pulls out a phone that Lottie thinks she hid on top of the closet. He hits speed dial. Hey, Mom, he says. Please do not freak out. She does, of course. The yelling is audible even from across the desk. Kylo holds the phone away from his ear with a wince. Kane reaches out, palm up. May I? He asks. Kylo hesitates, then hands over the phone like it is a live grenade. Lottie, Kane says. The line goes dead quiet. He swallows. It is Kane, he says. From the hotel, from the bar, from the pendant you left behind. There is a sharp inhale on the other end. I did not know how to find you, he says. But I think your kids solved that. Lottie does not speak for a long moment. You found them, she says at last, her voice thin with fear. Are they okay? They are in my office, he says. They are bossing my staff around and stealing my tiramisu. They are more than okay. A shaky exhale. You have no right to keep them there, she says, anger pushing through the fright. Tell them to come home, now. I will bring them home myself, he says. If you will let me in the door. Silence. He presses on. I want to talk, he says. About that night. About what came after. About them. Please, Lottie, give me a chance. Kylo watches him with sharp, assessing eyes. Lorna laces her fingers together. Cammy holds her breath. Lawson squeezes Rocky's shoulder. Kaylee plays with a loose thread on her dress. Lottie is quiet for so long he wonders if she hung up. Then she says, very quietly. Fine. But if you try anything, my children will destroy you. Kane glances at Kylo, who smiles slightly. I believe that. Kane says. Text me your address. He hangs up and looks at the 6 small strangers, who are not strangers at all. All right, team, he says. Field trip, part 2. Kaylee beams. I knew today was going to be fun, she says. Lottie's house has never felt as small as it does with Kane Walker standing in the doorway. He has to duck his head to come inside. The living room is suddenly full of sharp edges and expensive fabric and aftershave that smells like boardrooms and private jets. Lottie clutches a dish towel in both hands like it might stop her from shaking. Her heart has not stopped racing since Kylo's first words on the phone. Now that she sees Kane in her doorway, in daylight, with her children crowding excitedly around his legs, it takes everything she has not to slam the door and lock it. He looks older, but not by much. A little more tired around the eyes. A little more weight in his shoulders. The same storm gray gaze, the same mouth that had kissed her into oblivion. Hi, he says. She hates that her chest flips at a simple word. Hi, she says back, because it is what her mouth knows how to do. There is an awkward pause. Then Kaylee, impatient, throws her hands in the air. Are you two going to stare all day? She demands. We have questions. Kane laughs, the sound rough. Right. He says. May I come in? Lottie steps aside. The kids pile onto the couch. Kane takes the armchair. Lottie stands by the window, needing distance, needing something solid at her back. So, she says, forcing herself to meet his eyes. They found you. They really did. He says. Your son hacked my building. Kylo shrugs. The firewall was lazy. He says. Lottie glares at him. We will talk about that later, she says. Kane leans forward, elbows on his knees. I am sorry, he says quietly. For what happened that night. For everything that came after. I was drugged before I ever got to that bar. I was not in my right mind. I know, Lottie says. I was there. Vince tried to sell me. His jaw tightens. I shut him down, he says. But he disappeared before I could do more. I kept thinking if I could find you, I could help. You had my name, she says. I had a first name in a bar that closed overnight, he says. I sent people back. I asked questions. I ran your description through every system I had access to. It is harder than movies. Make it look when someone wants to stay off the grid. She thinks of the way she had run. New address, new phone, new job. No forwarding. No social media. I did not want you to find me, she admits. The kids shift on the couch, eyes wide. Why? Lawson blurts. Because I woke up in a life I could barely control, she says, looking at them, not at Kane. 6 babies. No partner. No savings. I did not know if you would want them. I did not know if you would want me. I thought it was safer to do it alone. That is not fair, Cammy says. He should have had a choice. Lottie closes her eyes briefly. I know, she says. I was scared. Kane watches her with something raw in his eyes. I cannot change the past, he says. But I want to be here now. For them. For you if you will let me. I do not need your money, she says automatically. I did not say anything about money, he says. I said I want to be here. To drive them to school. To fix the leaky sink. To make sure you sleep more than 4 hours a night. Kaylee sits up straighter. I would like a bunk bed, she says. Mom says we cannot afford it. Kane smiles. I can definitely build a bunk bed, he says. Lottie shoots him a warning look. We will discuss bunk beds, she says. Kylo clears his throat. Also, he says. Your uncle is a criminal. The room stills. What? Kane says slowly. Kylo spins his laptop around. On the screen, folders and charts and lines of numbers appear. I started digging into Walker International after I figured out who you were, he says. Your Uncle Gordon has been moving money around weirdly. Shell companies, offshore accounts, fake invoices. It is messy. If I can see it, other people can too. Lottie feels the floor tilt. You told me the night we met that someone had put something in your drink, she says slowly. You thought it was him. Kane nods once, eyes never leaving the screen. I never proved it, he says. Not in a way that would stick. Well, Lorna says, leaning over Kylo's shoulder. Now we can. It happens faster than Lottie expects. Within a week, Kane has his internal audit team crawling over every transaction Kylo flagged. Kylo sits in on the meetings, impossibly small, in a rolling office chair, explaining code like it is a second language he was born speaking. Gordon Walker realizes too late that the ground is moving under his feet. When he does what cowards always do. He goes for the weak spot. It is a rainy Thursday when Lottie hears the knock on the door. She wipes her hands on a dish towel and opens it, expecting a neighbor. Gordon Walker stands on her porch in an expensive raincoat, his smile oily. Ms. Brooks, he says. We need to talk. The sight of his eyes makes something cold crawl up her spine. She has met his type in bars and back rooms and landlord offices. Men who think power is a weapon and other people are disposable. I do not think we do, she says, starting to close the door. He wedges his foot into the gap and pushes. 2 men in dark jackets step up behind him. I insist, he says. The kids are in the living room, cartoons playing too loud. Lawson is building a pillow fort. Rocky sits cross-legged with a book. Kaylee is painting her nails with glitter that somehow ends up on everything. Lottie blocks the hallway with her body. If you take one step toward my children, I will scream the roof off this house, she says. Gordon's smile peels back. You think Kane can protect you, he says. He is busy right now. Board meeting. Very dramatic. While he is distracted, we are going to take the little prodigy and erase his mistakes. Kylo. Lottie feels like her blood turns to ice. One of the men moves past her, heading for the living room. Rocky looks up, taking in the strangers, the way his mother's face has gone white. "Mom," he says quietly. "Do you need me to call Dad?" The casual use of the word dad almost makes her cry. "Do it," she says. "Now." Gordon grabs her arm. "You are not calling anyone," he snarls. He does not notice the small phone already in Rocky's hand, hidden by the doorway. "Hey," Rocky says when Kane picks up. "It is me. There are bad guys. They said board meeting, so maybe you can use that against them later. Bring the cavalry." He hangs up and looks at the nearest man. "You picked the wrong house," he says. The next minutes are chaos. Gordon shoves Lottie into a chair. One of the men grabs Kylo, who refuses to let go of his laptop. Lorna stands in front of the younger kids, shaking but unyielding. "You will come with us," Gordon says to Kylo. "You will fix what you broke, or your mother pays." Kylo stares at him, breathing hard. "No," he says. "I will not." Gordon raises his hand. The front door crashes inward. Kane hits Gordon like a truck. Security pours in behind him. Big men in dark suits who move with efficient force. One of them disarms the guy holding Kylo. Another pins the second thug to the wall. Gordon scrambles to his feet, face twisted. "You cannot prove anything." He spits at Kane. "You will go down with me. You think the board will choose an unstable nephew over a seasoned hand?" Kane looks at Kylo. "You sent the files?" he asks. Kylo nods. "To the board, the auditors, and the district attorney," he says. "With a neat little summary they can understand." Gordon blanches. Sirens wail in the distance. "Yes," Kane says to his uncle. "I think I will be fine." The police arrive minutes later. They listen to the security team's statements, take copies of the files, and read Gordon his rights on Lottie's porch in the rain. The kids watch from the window. Lawson presses both hands to the glass. "That is what happens when you threaten my family," Kane says, his voice low and flat. Lottie looks at him. "You said my family," she says. "I meant it," he says. The fight is not over. There will be depositions and interviews and late nights with lawyers. But for the first time in years, Lottie feels like someone else is carrying part of the weight. She is not sure what to do with that feeling. A month later, Walker International's annual gala glitters under chandeliers the size of small cars. The hotel ballroom is full of silk and diamonds and people who like to hear their own names. Camera flashes pop musicians play something soft in the corner. Lottie stands near the back, feeling like she snuck in through the service entrance. Her dress is simple, navy blue, bought second-hand and altered at the kitchen table. Lorna helped choose it. Kaylee insisted on adding a sparkly belt. Lottie curls her hands around a glass of sparkling water and tries not to tug at the hem. "Stop fidgeting," Cammy whispers at her elbow. "You look beautiful." "I feel like I am wearing someone else's costume," Lottie mutters. "That is kind of the point," Cammy says. "We are here to shock people. The kids are not technically invited." Kane argued with the event planner until they compromised on a short appearance for the family during his speech. Short appearance is not a phrase that applies to the Brooks kids. They have a plan. Kane stands near the stage, listening with half an ear to a board member drone about projections. He wears a tuxedo like he was born in it. His mind is on Lottie though, and on the way she looked when she got out of the car earlier, eyes wide, breath catching at the side of the ballroom. He cannot quite believe she agreed to come. For years he pictured introducing his partner to this world, imagining a polished wife who knew which fork to use. Instead he has Lottie, who says things like "I do not belong here," and whose hands smell faintly of caramel even in silk gloves. He would not trade her for anyone. A hush ripples across the room. Miranda Cohen appears at the top of the stairs in a dress that looks like it was sewn out of moonlight and knives. Her lips are painted a perfect red. Her eyes sweep the crowd, already calculating. She finds Kane, smiles like a cat, and glides toward him. "Kane," she purrs. "You look tired. Too much stress at home?" He meets her gaze coolly. "I have never been better," he says. "Really?" she says, tilting her head toward where Lottie stands with the kids. "This is your big secret? A baker from Queens and a pack of wild children?" Lottie hears her. She is not meant to, but the words travel clearly in the crowded room. Heat crawls up her neck. Miranda turns, smile sharpening. "Oh, I am sorry," she says loudly. "Did I say that out loud?" Her voice rings over the music. Several guests turn to look. Lottie is suddenly very aware of the second-hand dress, the calluses on her hands, the way her heels are half a size too big. "I was just wondering," Miranda continues. What exactly makes you think you belong here? You know how this world works, sweetheart. Women like you do not get fairy tale endings with men like him, unless you are very, very good at pretending. The humiliation hits like a slap. For a second Lottie wants to disappear. Before she can move, Kaylee steps out from behind her dress and marches straight up to Miranda. You are mean, Kaylee announces, loud enough for the microphones near the stage to pick up. And your lipstick is crooked. A ripple of laughter moves through the crowd. Miranda's eyes flash. Children should be seen and not heard, she says. Then why are you talking? Rocky asks from beside the punch bowl. The laughter swells. Cammy slips her small hand into Lottie's. Remember the plan, she whispers. Kylo nods to the technician by the sound booth, who owes him a favor after he fixed his broken laptop last week. The big screens behind the stage flicker. Miranda turns, expecting to see the Walker International logo. Instead, images appear. Emails. Bank transfers. Screenshots of private messages between Miranda and Gordon Walker, traded months before his arrest. We push Kane out quietly. We blame the numbers on him. You get the company, I get the seat beside you. Underneath the text is a clear photo of Miranda signing a document in Gordon's office. The crowd goes silent. Miranda's face drains of color. You hacked me. She hisses at Kylo. He smiles politely. You hacked yourself, he says. You just left the door open. Reporters at the edges of the room start filming. Phones rise like a field of glowing flowers. Kane steps onto the small stage and picks up a microphone. Since we are sharing secrets, he says, his voice carrying easily, let me add a few. He looks straight at Lottie. 5 years ago, he says, I met a woman who changed my life. I was too slow to find her again. She did something brave and terrifying, and raised 6 incredible kids without me. Guests murmur. Someone gasps. That man was Gordon Walker. Kane continues, nodding toward the frozen image on the screen. He and his associate here conspired to remove me from the company that bears my family's name. They failed. Thanks to my son, we have the evidence we need to make sure they never hurt anyone else again. He lets that sink in. Miranda stumbles back a step, eyes wild. Security moves in quietly at the edges of the room. But that is not the important part, Kane says. The important part is that I am done letting other people decide what my family should look like. He walks off the stage, microphone in hand, and crosses the dance floor. He stops in front of Lottie. The kids cluster around her legs like a living shield. Hi, he says again, because it is their word. She laughs through the knot in her throat. You are supposed to be giving a speech, she says. I am, he says. He drops to one knee. The room collectively exhales. Lottie covers her mouth with one hand. Kane, she whispers. Lottie Brooks, he says, holding up a small velvet box. You ran out on me once. I am asking you not to do it again. He opens the box. Inside is a ring that glitters under the chandeliers. The stones are not as big as some in the room, but the setting is delicate, the design a tiny slice of cake with diamonds for frosting. Lottie laughs and sobs at the same time. You turned my pendant into a ring, she says. You left it, he says. I took that as a sign. The kids surge forward. Say yes, Kaylee urges. Please say yes, I already told my class my dad is marrying my mom. If you say no, we will unionize, Cammy adds. Lorna nods. We drafted a list of demands, she says. Rocky just looks at Lottie. You want this, he says quietly. It is not a question, it is a permission slip. She looks at Kane. At the room full of people watching. At the screens still showing Miranda's betrayal. At Miranda being escorted out with cameras following every step. Her life has been a series of small, frantic choices to survive. This feels like something else, a choice to actually live. Yes, she says, her voice shaking but clear. Yes, I will marry you. The ballroom erupts. Kane slides the ring onto her finger and stands, pulling her into a kiss that tastes like champagne and sugar and 5 lost years. The kids cheer so loud the music is drowned out. The wedding is nothing like the gala. Lottie insists on that. No ballrooms, no red carpets, no menus with 3 kinds of caviar. They get married in the backyard of the old Walker family estate on Long Island, under a big maple tree that has been there since Kane's grandfather was a boy. Fairy lights hang from the branches. Paper lanterns sway in the ocean breeze. Folding chairs that do not match sit in rows, filled with people from both of their worlds. Board members in suits next to guys from the market who helped Lottie haul coolers for years. Lottie walks down the makeshift aisle in a dress that is simple and perfect, lace and soft fabric that moves like water. Her hair is half up, half down, threaded with small white flowers that Lorna picked from the garden. Kaylee throws petals from a basket with reckless enthusiasm, hitting several guests in the face. Cammy walks beside Lottie, holding her hand so tight their fingers turn white. Kylo stands at the makeshift altar with a tablet and a solemn expression. I am the officiant, he had announced weeks earlier. I watched all the legal requirements online. We can have someone sign the papers later. I just want to be the one to say it. Kane had agreed instantly. Now he waits under the maple tree, in a suit without a tie, looking less like a CEO and more like a man who has finally found his home. When Lottie reaches him, he takes her hand. You look like a dream, he says. Do not cry, she whispers. If you cry, I will cry, and the pictures will be ruined. He laughs, eyes suspiciously bright. Kylo clears his throat. We are gathered here today. He begins in a voice that tries very hard to be grown up and almost succeeds. Because my mom and my dad took a very long, very weird way to find each other again, and we are tired of waiting. Laughter ripples through the crowd. They survived poison drinks. Kylo continues. Bad bosses, evil uncles, mean ladies in shiny dresses, 6 babies at once. That last one might have been partly our fault. Completely your fault, Lottie mutters. But they are still standing, Kylo says. And they still look at each other like the other one is the best dessert on the table. So I think they deserve to be happy. He looks at Kane. Do you, Dad, promise to love Mom when her frosting breaks, and when the oven burns the cookies, and when we are loud, and when the world is loud, and when you are tired, but we need someone to fight for us? I do, Kane says, without a second of hesitation. He looks at Lottie. Do you, Mom, promise to let Dad help? Kylo asks. Even when it is hard, even when you think you can do everything alone, do you promise to let us all be a team? Lottie's eyes fill with tears. I do, she says. I really do. Then by the power vested in me by nothing but your complete trust. Kylo says, grinning now. I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss, but not for too long because Lawson and Rocky will complain. Lawson and Rocky both nod in serious agreement. Kane pulls Lottie closer. Just enough, he murmurs. He kisses her under the maple tree, while their children cheer, and the sun sets over the water, painting the sky in colors so bright they look almost fake. Later, when the paper lanterns glow and the music starts, the backyard turns into the happiest chaos anyone has ever seen. Lawson challenges every adult present to a push-up contest. Cammy carries a clipboard and makes strangers sign a family happiness contract that she invented. Lorna runs the dessert table like a general. There are 3 kinds of cake, 4 types of cookies, and a tray of tiramisu that disappears in minutes. Kaylee drags Kane onto the makeshift dance floor. Daddy-daughter dance, she says. It is a rule. Rocky sits under the maple tree, watching the lights reflected in the glass windows of the house. This does not suck, he says thoughtfully. Kane drops down beside him. High praise, he says. Rocky leans his head briefly against Kane's arm. Do not mess it up, he says quietly. I will spend the rest of my life making sure I do not. Kane answers. Inside the house, Lottie sneaks a moment alone in the kitchen. She stands at the sink, staring at the ring on her finger, feeling the weight of it, the weight of the years behind and ahead. Her reflection in the window is different from the girl who ran through a neon alley 5 years ago. Stronger, softer in some ways, sharper in others. Arms slide around her waist from behind. Kane rests his chin on her shoulder. Hey, Mrs. Walker, he says. The title makes her stomach flip and settle at the same time. You are going to keep saying that until it feels normal, aren't you? She says. Probably, he says. You okay? She looks at the backyard full of light and movement, and the 6 small figures at the center of it all. I am terrified, she says honestly. And happy, and tired, and hungry. Good, he says. We have cake for 2 of those. He kisses her temple. Thank you, he says. For giving me a second chance. For giving me them. You gave yourself to us the second you walked into that alley, she says. It just took us a while to catch up. He squeezes her tighter. We will figure it out, he says. Day by day, night by night, homework by homework, and bunk bed by bunk bed. Lawson adds from the doorway, where he is clearly eavesdropping. Kane laughs. And bunk bed by bunk bed. He agrees. The night stretches ahead, full of dancing and sugar and stories that will be told for years. Once upon a time, a girl from a queen's bar and a man from a glass tower collided in the worst night of their lives. 5 years, 6 babies, 1 evil uncle, and 1 ruined gala later, they stand together in a backyard that smells like frosting and cut grass, with their future screaming and laughing and arguing all around them. It is messy and loud, and nothing like the glossy fairy tales on magazine covers. It is better. It is theirs.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.